pants and said we should go without pants after a break, and they all still had pants on. He came out without, but he's like, okay, and walks off.
Danica said I should put on shorts, so just have the upper part.
Okay. Good evening, folks. It is 1900 in the city of Gardner tonight, and this meeting is now in session. Please rise with me and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Very excited tonight. Unfortunately, Mayor Steve Shute is not with us tonight. He is on a business trip in Florida. And so you have me, Council President Lee Moore, to run the meeting. And I'm very excited tonight to do my first ever proclamation. As all of you guys up here know, I didn't sign up for this. It just kind of fell in my lap. But this is awesome and really fun. Girl Scouts are going to join us tonight and come up and share with us a couple of presentations that they have, and then we'll follow that with a reading of the proclamation, and then we'll award some certificates. So who's coming up?
You guys ought to step up to the microphone so the people at home can hear you.
Hello, we are Troop 539. My name is Catherine Thurman, and I am from Wheat Ridge Middle School in 8th grade.
I am Kylie Hayes. I am from Trey Ridge Middle School, and I'm in 8th grade.
My name is Siri Fountain. I am from Trey Ridge Middle School, and I'm in 8th grade.
For our Silver Award, we talked to Pastor Lucas and found there is a real need to help foster kids. So we decided to do our Silver Award for helping local foster kids.
We set up a bake sale at Walmart to help raise money for supplies to make blankets and fill backpacks. At the bake sale, we raised $400, but we wanted to do more, so we wanted to find an organization to team up with to make these a bigger impact. So we went to the missions board at my church and asked if they wanted to partner with us. With their help, we started to collect blanket sheet sets and waterproof mattress pads.
At the end of our journey, we learned a lot. Not only did we practice our public speaking, but we got to meet some of the kids that we were helping at the Christmas party that we volunteered at. We ended up making 135 blankets and collected 105 sheet sets, 100 waterproof mattress pads, 85 packages of underwear, and 50 backpacks with supplies that we collected for foster kids.
Not only did we collect for foster kids last year, but the church set up a Caring for Kids mission, so now every April they will be collecting for our local foster kids. This year we are collecting hygiene kits. Between our troops and troops within Gardner and Edgerton, we have put together 40 hygiene kits. Thank you for your time.
That was for the Silver Award, and this is for...
Hi, my name is Samantha Marcotte. I am a recent graduate of Gardner Edgerton High School, and I will be continuing my studies at Washington University in St. Louis in the fall. I am a Gold Award Girl Scout. For my Gold Award, I redid the tech booth and projector shelf at my church. I first started out by going around my community and seeing what problems would be sustainable to solve. And I discovered that my church needed our tech booth redone because it was ineffective, it was an eyesore, and it was a temporary solution that then became permanent over the course of 20 years. I started out by meeting with the Building and Grounds Committee at my church to figure out different ways that we could solve this issue. and what would and would not work. I then met with the session at my church, created a pre-read and a presentation for them. Once I got approval from them, I then proceeded with following out my plan. I started out by working on the projector shelf. I used calculus to figure out the angles to make it parallel to the ground and support the load of 2 projectors. After I finished the projector shelf, I then moved on to working on the tech booth. I used a recycled an old bowling lane to create a unique, minimalistic booth that would be easy to take apart and put together if need be. I also raised it up so that it would be easier for someone to slide under and have nice leg room. I also added monitor stands and a equipment rack to make the equipment easily accessible. After I finished with the tech booth, I then went back and I asked the buildings and grounds and the users of the tech booth if it was fine and if it met all of their needs that they needed to be completed, and it did. And so that was my gold award, and I learned teamwork and many more skills I will be able to use throughout the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. All right, any other ones? Is that it? All right. We'll go ahead and read the proclamation, and then I'll come out around the front of the podium there. We can hand out these certificates. So, without further ado, whereas the Girl Scouts of USA has existed for 107 years, inspiring millions of girls and women with the highest ideals of character, conduct, and patriotism, and whereas through Girl Scouting, girls can gain courage, confidence, and character while making their local communities and the world a better place, and whereas more than 2.5 million current Girl Scout members nationwide celebrate this American tradition, with nearly 60 million women who are former Girl Scouts and living proof of the impact of this movement. Whereas in 2019, 9 Scouts and Troops 1031, 539, and 880 have been recognized by the Girl Scouts of the USA for successfully completing all requirements for Scouting's highest awards, and whereas we are gathered here on this occasion as friends, families, and neighbors of these Scouts to support them on their attainment of these awards and to recognize the faithful and steady path taken within the Scouting organization, and now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Lee Moore, standing in for Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, do hereby recognize and congratulate these Girl Scouts for attaining the bronze, silver, and gold awards, and ask that the community join in celebrating them for this outstanding accomplishment, and extending to them our deepest appreciation for all of their dedicated work and wishing them the best in all of their future endeavors. In witness thereof, I have here unto my hand, blah, blah, blah. We signed it. Signed by the mayor. It's awesome. And without further ado, let's give these certificates out. Yeah. Start off with start with the bronze awards.
I'm picking up for them since they are not here.
Okay. So first one is Holly McNaney, Kenya Pavel, Allison Turner, and Annabelle Croson.
Thank you very much.
Next are the silver awards. Siri Fountain. Congratulations. Micah Van Babel. Catherine Thurman. Congratulations. and Kylie Hayes. Are you Kylie? Congratulations. And last but not least, our gold award goes to Samantha Marcotte. Congratulations. And you guys want to line up and get a picture?
I'm good at it.
No, actually, whoever's holding this gets to be in the picture too.
Oh, we have like someone using today. Here, how about I do this?
Congratulations.
I'm gonna have to work harder on my badges so I can get one of those.
Yeah, that's fun. That was awesome. Next up on the agenda, we have Mr. Steve Hale, presenting on the 2020 census.
Here we go. Hi, gentlemen. Thank you, President Moore and council members, for having me tonight. I am with the census, but I'm a Gardner resident, 30,000 West 159th Street, out there, a beautiful Gardner golf course. Happy to report that. I won't take up much of your time, but I do want to give you a quick overview about the census, what it means to the city of Gardner, and what my role is with the state, in the state of Kansas, and what you might be able to do. The census is something that's mandated by the Constitution. It's been going on for more than 2 centuries now. It started in 1790. The Constitution requires that we count every person living in the United States. That count is used in a variety of ways. First and foremost, it determines districting lines for state representatives in Congress, some cities, school board districts, and all that. That's all based on census numbers, the number of people we have in the electoral college, all that. But quite frankly, and the number one reason that the census is so important for so many communities across this country and here in Kansas, it's all about the money. It's dollars and cents. So as I sent in your packets there, we have information that of the 800 some billion dollars that the federal government gives out for 55 state oriented federal oriented programs. Almost 8 billion or more than 8 billion comes back to Kansas. And as I was outlined on that sheet, those dollars go back to highway funds, Head Start programs, a variety of social programs, Medicare, Medicaid. It's all outlined there, but there's a lot at stake. So this census is going to be a little bit different than previous. It's going to be a lot different than previous census for a variety of reasons. In the past, it's all been a paper pencil process, but this year, 95% of the households in the country will be invited per a postcard or a mailing to fill out their census data online. So that's for a variety of reasons. One is that it's cost efficient, and the Census Bureau, which is part of the Department of Commerce, their budget's been depleted quite a bit. So that's one necessity of it. The other part of it is that it allows the Census Bureau to track how cities and communities are responding in real time, so they know if there's areas that, as the census proceeds, that their people aren't turning out, that they can make a little bit of a push in those areas. But that also comes, this online aspect of it also comes with some concerns. We are in an age of social media, and there's a lot of concern about confidentiality and security, and even though the census responses are encrypted and tested and retested, and we're assured that they're completely safe, and not only that, all the information that goes to the Census Bureau is kept strictly confidential. It's not distributed to any other agencies or anything. It's just to the Census Bureau only. But because of those general concerns and a general distrust for government, we have some challenges ahead. My role is a partnership specialist with the state of Kansas, and I am one of 4 right now that's covering the entire state. The plan is to eventually have 12 of us doing this between now and when the first of the year. Personally, I don't see it happening. I can tell you that my onboarding process took about 5 months, and they just still are putting applications out there. Well, that puts us pretty close to the end of the year. So right now I'm covering most of South Kansas and I'm talking southeast, south central, and southwest, and some parts of Johnson County where I have my connections. And my role is to talk to communities about forming complete count committees or become partners in the census, so that the word about the census and getting their communities to respond comes from them, the trusted voices of the community, instead of, hi, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. So I've been last week I had a real interesting week out in southwest Kansas, and I've been in Liberal and Dodge and Garden City and some smaller towns out there on the south side, southeast. I've been in Pittsburgh and Coffeyville and Ark City and Independence and small towns like Halstead and Mount Hope and other towns like Fort Scott and McPherson. And in each of these communities, we have been embraced to come in and help count, because they understand that this is all about getting funding for a lot of programs. There's also an economic development aspect of this. For example, in Montgomery County, Coffeyville and Independence, they're just underneath, from the 2010 census, that number that restaurant franchises and chains looked at before they come into a community. So they're really hoping that they can build it up. I can tell you that in southwest Kansas, where they have very rich and deep ethnic communities, from Hispanics to Asian to African, they are very concerned about getting those people counted. And yet that's where there's a lot of suspicion about taking place. So here in Kansas, the state has formed at the direction of Governor Kelly, has formed a complete count committee, statewide count committee. Other states have put a lot of budget monies towards this census count and making sure that it's promoted and adequately within their states. California, for example, did $100 million out of its budget, and the city of Los Angeles itself, $40 million. North Dakota just gave $1 million. Kansas has no budget for the census. But what Governor Kelly is doing is dispatching her various department heads to be a part of this committee. She's appointed co-chairs, a Democrat from Lawrence and a Republican from Dodge City to be on it, and they're going to bring other people into the group. So there's a statewide effort that's going to get rolling here pretty quick to get the word out. I will also tell you that the Kansas League of Municipalities is very engaged in this process, and they're working separately with us, but very much hand in glove in getting the word out. They received a $519,000 grant from the Kansas Health Foundation, and that's going to be distributed to cities who asked to request that money. They're in the process of determining what the parameters are, whether it's going to go to social media, how cities will qualify for those funds, and so on and so forth. But I know you're part of the League of Municipalities, and you need to be paying attention to how to go about getting those grants. Here in Johnson County, I told you I'd be short, and I'm not doing a very good job, am I? Here in Johnson County, there is a complete count committee that Commissioner Eilert has formed, and the city of Gardner would be very welcome to attend that. You should so choose. Right now, it's kind of a mix. Olathe is involved, Lenexa is involved, and then some chambers of commerce. The area agency on aging is involved. The El Centro, the Hispanic outreach social group is involved. So Gardner certainly would have can reach out to the county and become part of that initiative. But you might want to consider, and I would encourage you to do this, is for the city of Gardner to start its own complete count committee, where you bring people of interest that would have an interest in this census and are the trusted voices here in Gardner that could go out and help spread the word about the census and how important it is. Gardner actually has two hard to count tracks, which is kind of rare in Johnson County. The two tracks south of 56 Highway, both sides of Center Street, Gardner Road, are considered hard to count areas. That's based on how they performed in the 2010 census and other demographic figures for those communities based on income levels, levels of education, and other criteria that the Census Bureau has surveyed over the years. So you got some challenges ahead, and you might want to consider bringing in some voices from the business community, from the faith-based community, anyone who deals with senior citizens and that type. So if you have such an interest, this is the first time actually that I presented to a city council in this way. Usually I go in, or the cities have called us in to talk to them about what we can do, and they've already got a committee being formed in process. This is a little bit backwards, and I'm coming to you to tell you about the process and letting you consider it. But in most cases, the committee has already been formed or being formed. Then I go to the mayor and city council, and as they issue a proclamation, yes, we're partners in the census and that type of thing. So that's where I'm at. You might have questions. I am your representative for the 2020 census in Kansas at this point. If you should want to start on such an effort, and as a resident of Gardner, this is on a personal level, I'm going to make sure it's a complete and accurate count. We want to ensure that our citizens at the census, it's safe, it's easy, and it's important. So I ask you to stay in touch. I don't know you're not going to proclaim anything tonight, but if you would step up and in a partnership role at the very least, and help us get the message out with your communications to the community at large, as it draws closer, then so be it. We'd certainly appreciate it. And take any questions you might have.
I'll open it up for questions if you guys have it.
You've always been an easy bunch
I've
to
got
deal
one question.
with. Go ahead.
I'm just kind of curious because I live in that hard to count tract. Do you have any more specific information on what makes that tract particularly hard to count?
No, and it's a little bit different too. When I looked at it, Lee, there's if you go to census.gov, there's a response outreach area mapper. It's called Rome, and it's like a Google search, and it has a map of the United States, and you can zoom in on it just like you would any destination in the country, and zoom right in on Gardner. And those two tracks are color coded, a little hard to count. I don't find anything particularly out of ordinary. Usually a hard to count community has a higher minority group. These don't. It usually has fewer high school educated kids or people, but these don't quite fit the mold. But the 22% and 23% were non-responsive in the 2020 census, and expectations are that they're going to remain hard to count based on what the demographics are. And believe me, I've looked at those numbers rather closely and compared them to other hard to count areas, and it's a bit puzzling to me too. We have two different types of residential. Here south of I-56 highway, we've got the trailer park area, and we've got some condominium or duplexes and all that there, and maybe that's a little hard to understand why it might be hard to count. But this side of the city, I certainly don't know. One other aspect about the census too is there's a lot of jobs. They're going to be hiring census address canvassers to go out and make sure that every address is confirmed. That is being done less than before because of geocoding and satellite imaging. They don't have to do much of that as they did in the past, but they will have census takers, and those addresses that don't respond either by online or by phone. You can respond on your smartphones to the census this year, or by phone. They will literally go around and knock on doors, and they're hiring people here in Johnson County, probably several hundred. I'm sure some in Gardner too.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. There is no public hearing, so now's the time for public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of the public hearing. We have a 5-minute rule there. It's still standing. I don't think we have any public. I don't think we have any public guys here, except for Steve.
They get their awards and they jet, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. We need to hold those to the end.
Yeah, we should have. Yeah, had more. Okay, so it doesn't look like any public comments. Next up on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a member of the council that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda and by Councilman Gregorczyk, and a second by Councilman Melton. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And the consent agenda passes. Committee, there are no committee recommendations. There is no old business. So the first item of new business is consider appointing Sharon Rose as City of Gardner interim city clerk and administer the oath of office. So that's you and me. Do we have to? We don't have to have any motion or anything for that, or there is a motion. Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion Melton, second Gregorczyk, that we appoint Sharon Rose as City of Gardner interim city clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. And no abstentions. Motion passes. So let's
Now you get to swear.
now we get to swear her in. And where's my script? There it is. Gotcha. All right. A little closer together. A little closer together. All right, please repeat after me. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear
I, Sharon Rose, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America.
that I will support.
I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties as City of Gardner interim city clerk.
and faithfully discharge the duties as City of Gardner interim city clerk.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. All right. That was the first for both of us. All right. On to new business item number 2, considering adopting a resolution authorizing the issuance and delivery of $3.8 million in dollars principal amount of general obligation temporary notes series 2119A of the City of Gardner, Kansas, for the purpose of temporary financing the cost of certain internal improvements of the city. And Bruce Kimmel should be up here to tell us what we did or what we're doing.
Yay, Bruce.
Thank you, Council President Moore and council members. Bruce Kimmel with Ellers, and Tyler Ellsworth, your bond counsel from QTech Rock, is here as well. What I'd like to do, with your permission, is to go through the sale day reports for both the A issue of notes and the B issue of bonds, and touch on your credit rating report as well. Then turn things over to Tyler to walk you through the resolution, the ordinance, and the resolution ahead of you. So do all of you have the 2 sale day reports? Great. So as you may recall, the city is issuing this set of, this series of 2019A temporary notes to finance public improvements for the Tuscan Farms Special Benefit District. We went out to the market with an offering of $3,820,000 today, and as you can see from the sale day report, we were able to reduce the final amount of this note issue by $95,000 to $3,725,000, and that's what the actual resolution in front of you reflects as well. We received 4 bids on the city's behalf today at 11 o'clock. We received the winning bid from Country Club Bank. If you flip over to the bid tabulation, you can see that all of the bids were relatively close to each other, although there was a nice spread between Country Club and Oppenheimer, so that was great to see, definitely of benefit to the city. Let me see what else is on this summary page that I need to cover. The one thing I would note here is that you can see the true interest cost was 1.83% with this winning bid. We had projected something closer to 2.8%. Now, we always go high just to make sure that we're not in for any unpleasant surprises, but this really was a great result, even beyond what we had expected. The market has only improved since you authorized this bond issue back in April. As you know from previous conversations, whenever there's volatility or turmoil or uncertainty about economics, people flee even more so to the safety of municipal bonds. And with the city of Gardner's very strong track record in the market, you can see that even with this relatively short-term issue, it only goes out a little over 3 years, it worked out very well. And I would note also the reason we were able to reduce this amount of notes by 95,000 was because with this much better interest rate, you need a lot less capitalized interest to pay the interest payments during construction of the public infrastructure. And the cost of issuance and the underwriter's discount also came in much lower than expected. So very, very strong result on those A notes. Moving on to the 2019 B bonds, this is definitive or permanent financing for improvements to your wastewater system, specifically to a lift station and to a storage tank. And on this bond issue, as you can see from your agenda, we went out to the market with $2,020,000. And on this one, we were able to reduce the par amount by $50,000 to a final amount of $1,970,000. This bond issue attracted 6 bids, also at 11 o'clock this morning, and Country Club was the winner on this one as well. So I'm guessing that Country Club has some community banks in its network that were really attracted to this because of the bank qualified status of the bonds, and they were able to be the top bidder on both of these issues. If you look at the bid tabulation on this one's pretty remarkable in that if you go down from 1 through 6, Country Club had a winning rate of 1.9958%, so under 2% for 10-year, almost 10-year bonds, 9-year bonds. And the worst bid, Bernardi, was at only a 217, which we still would have been thrilled with. So, basically 17 or 18 basis points from first to last. Very, very aggressive bidding. And you can see, as you've had in other bond issues, the national scope of the bidding, or at least the Midwestern scope. There's lots of banks that are very interested in buying Kansas paper, especially highly rated paper like Gardner's. The only other thing I would note on this one is, you're paying this bond back with utility revenues, and because of the better interest rates that we were able to secure relative to the projections, your overall debt service on this will be about $100,000 less over the 9-year period than what we had projected. So a nice result, and that one's also about 84 basis points better than what we had projected. Any questions about the bid results that we received before I just touch on the credit rating?
No,
Okay.
excited.
Yeah, good. Very nice.
Well, first and foremost, neither of them are here, but you guys got to know that Matt Wolf and Nancy Tornaden really just eat this credit rating stuff for breakfast. They are fantastic in terms of preparing for these rating calls, pulling together all the materials that are necessary to be fully informed and to make sure the rating analyst down in Houston, or Dallas, had everything that she needed. And then in following up with follow-up questions and clarifying things in the report, they make my job as your representative and your advocate very, very easy. And so this rating, affirmation of your AA- rating, was pretty much a slam dunk from the get-go. And I would note, we've talked about how S&P uses these standard adjectives like very strong, adequate, weak, and very weak, and they just sort of fit in these little boxes. Well, I think it's worth noting that because of the growth in your tax base from last year to this year, your debt load, which we know why you have debt because you're a growing community, has gone from very weak to just weak. So there you go. But I want to walk through these rating criteria because the things that you can really control, or you and your staff can really control, are the ones that make the outsized difference. So if you would just go with me to the first full page of the rating report, which is in each of the packets. I just wanted to give you a sense of how S&P puts these together because, again, I think it'll give you a sense of what really matters in their eyes. So the economy, in how they measure the economy, accounts for 30% of the rating, and they say adequate economy, which is actually good. Adequate is actually a good, solid, stable base to work from. So that's 30% of the rating. Management, financial management in all sorts of different shapes and ways is a full 20% of the rating. So The policies, procedures, the good financial practices that the city has accounts for 20% of the rating. And you can see that they call your financial management strong. Budgetary performance, I wanted to qualify this. They say weak budgetary performance, but that's solely because you intentionally budget for deficits to keep your fund balances at reasonable levels. And you always outperform that because you budget conservatively. You under budget for revenues and you over budget for expenditures. So they say, well, it's technically weak, but they say in the report, but this is intentional. It's not because of oops, any mistakes or unforeseen circumstances. That's 10%, but then right after that you see very strong budgetary flexibility. That's also 10%. So those things basically cancel each other out. And really when there's tiebreakers, budgetary flexibility, having fund balance that's accessible in the case of emergency really is more powerful for rating purposes. Then going on to the next page, you can see very strong liquidity. That's also 10%. The debt profile is 10%, only 10%. That is often surprising to people, but they give you credit for how quickly you're paying off your debt. You're paying off over 72% within 10 years. So they say, yeah, you have a fair amount of debt, but you're doing your best to pay it off, and this bond issue is an example of that. And then finally, the last 10% is the institutional framework that looks at things like just the overall Midwestern economy, the state of Kansas's financial performance, and so on. So I just wanted to spend a few more minutes than normal on that because I think a lot of credit goes to you as the city council and also to your staff for the financial management, keeping these strong fund balances, having liquidity on hand. These are all the things that really drive the majority of your rating. And being in that AA category is very important. It gets you a whole nother class of investors that are willing and able to buy AA paper as opposed to A-rated paper. So we always make sure that if there's ever anything that could potentially threaten that rating, that we work with your staff to address that. Okay, that's all I have. Are there any questions about the rating?
Not so much about the rating. I'm just curious with the rates where they are now. I'm sure you guys are always analyzing this, but yeah. I know in the past we've refinanced some bonds and things like that. Are there any that might be in the future that we might be looking at?
There are, yes. Councilmember Winters, we've been talking with Finance Director Wolf about some bonds that are currently callable and some more that will be callable this fall. There are some likely financings this fall, and so we most likely would be teeing up a couple of small refinancings, not huge dollars, but every bit helps. And yes, those do look like they're in the money for refinancing savings. So it would make sense to bundle those with the new projects that you'll have at the end of this construction season. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Well, thanks for the opportunity to work with you. It's always a pleasure, and again, you have a great team, and I'll turn it over to Tyler to answer any questions you might have about the resolutions and ordinance ahead of you. So thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Hi, Tyler.
Good evening, Council President, Council members. Tyler Ellsworth with Kutak Rock, the city's bond counsel. I think the 3 agenda items that we're requesting you consider this evening are fairly straightforward. There is a resolution, and each item requires a separate motion, separate vote. First, there's agenda item number 2, which is the resolution authorizing the issuance of what is now $3.725 million in temporary notes. Agenda items 3 and 4 have to do with the bond issue, and that's the issuance of what is now $1.97 million in GO bonds. Just briefly, the reason that notes only requires a resolution and bonds requires an ordinance and a resolution is just differences in the statutes authorizing each of those different types of debt. So happy to answer any particular questions about those 3 action items, but otherwise I'll turn it back over to you.
Any questions? Comments? Thank you for all the work on this.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Tom. Okay. So first motion on the table is authorizing issuance and delivery of the 3.8 million principal amount.
I think there's a new number there.
Yeah, I'll read that. I guess I can read that before I do the motion. Or
Yeah, you got it,
after.
because we have to have it spelled out before.
All right, so the motion would be to adopt Resolution 2022, authorizing the issuance and delivery, the form and details of, and authorizing the delivery of $3,820,000.
3.7,
We're at 7?
3.72. Remember that changed.
No, oh, yeah, sorry.
That's right. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Whoever thought I'd be here to help.
Especially on that.
And it's actually she actually even put this in parentheses for me, so I would know. But,
There you go.
all right.
He's new at this.
I'm nervous.
Good thing nobody's out here to watch this. Hello, YouTube. Millions of people.
Online.
Millions of people online. All right, let's start over. The motion will be to adopt Resolution 2022, authorizing the issuance and delivery, the form and details of, and authorizing the delivery of $3,725,000 principal amount of general obligation temporary notes, Series 2019A of the City of Gardner, Kansas, for the purpose of temporarily financing the cost of certain internal improvements of the city. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Winters, and second Melton, that we adopt the resolution 2022. All those in favor? No, this is a roll call. Interim city clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilman Moore,
Yes.
Councilman Winters,
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilman Melton,
Yes.
Resolution 2022 passes. Next item is consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of $1,970,000 principal amount of general obligation bond, Series 2019B of the City of Gardner, Kansas, and providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal amount of and interest on the bonds as they come due. This is adopt ordinance number 2615.
So moved. Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Melton, that we adopt ordinance number 2615. And city clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilman Winters,
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilman Melton,
Yes.
Councilman Moore,
Yes. And motion passes. Third and final motion for this is consider adopting resolution number 2023, prescribing the form and details of and authorizing the delivery of $1,970,000 principal amount of the general obligation bonds, Series 2019B of the City of Gardner, Kansas, previously authorized by an ordinance of the city. Interim city clerk, can you please call the roll?
I would say.
So moved. Motion, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry. Motion Winters, second Gregorczyk, and city administrator, or city clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilman Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Melton,
Yes.
Councilman Moore,
Yes.
Councilman Winters,
Yes.
All right, motion passes. And number 5, consider adopting a resolution revising a section of the Personnel Policy Manual 2018 edition. That's Alan.
Good evening.
Mr. Alan
Evening,
Brabham.
Alan.
So, the reason I am here this evening to discuss this with you is I was approached by interim city administrator Laura Gurley, who said that she had a question from one of the council members about the rules for a city employee to allow them or not allow them to have a sign in their yard, a political sign in their yard supporting a person who's running for the city council. So it was suggested that we contact our employee relations attorney, Karen Glickstein, and I believe I sent you an email regarding her response, which I told her that the response was like having a class in constitutional law. But the bottom line in all of this is that if the governing body would like to allow employees to display signs in their yard, we have a way to amend the policy. And it's on the CAF, it would be, it's recommended that by our employee relations attorney that we amend our personnel policy as follows, that nothing in this policy is meant to prohibit an employee from wearing or displaying political badges, buttons, or signs on their person or personal property while off duty, nor is it meant to prohibit an employee from displaying signs on their personal real property. So just as a clarification, obviously they could not wear any kind of pins or anything while on duty. They could not have bumper stickers on their car and parked in our parking lot. But if they want to display a sign in their yard, if this passes, that would be acceptable. So, answer any questions or?
All right. Anybody have any questions?
Did anyone bring up, or is it just maybe missing that it doesn't say clothing specifically? So like if you have a campaign shirt, it talks about putting badges and buttons on you, but not a shirt. I think that would fall under the same vein here. So I would encourage putting clothing in there.
Or just say on person.
Or on
Well,
person.
it says on their person. Ryan, what is your opinion on it?
His amendment's appropriate if you feel it's specific.
Okay.
I just think somebody could get into the wordies and say displaying those badges or signs, and if you don't have it on something.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, seems to me like it covers it. You're wearing or displaying.
Yeah, but it's wearing or displaying the rest of it.
Political
The badges, the buttons, or signs.
Signs. Yeah, I mean, a sign on a t-shirt is a sign on a t-shirt.
T-shirt.
Or an emblem or a badge on a t-shirt, or, I mean, it's the same thing. I don't know how you could really,
Well, I think since you specifically spell out a badge and a button
Wouldn't hurt
and
to
a
put it on
sign.
there. Doesn't cost us any extra, right?
no.
Right.
Apparel, I think.
Because
Apparel.
hats, I mean, it
Okay.
could be,
Socks.
Shorts, that'd be hats.
because
Yeah,
Todd's
whatever.
running with Abraham Lincoln hats, that's what he's going to do this year.
Yeah, I get
Okay.
it. I'll go with
Plenty
it.
of advertising.
I don't think it's necessary, but I'll go with it. I feel like it's covered already, because if you wear a t-shirt that has a political message on it, that's covered under signs in my limited vocabulary.
But you won't be here forever.
True.
Well,
But yeah,
what would be the consensus for the
Apparel.
council?
Because that kind of covers everything, apparel.
Just to
Apparel?
clarify.
Okay.
political badges, buttons, apparel, or signs.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, discussion?
No. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much. So I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2024, revising Section 2-104.8 of the Personnel Policy Manual 2018 edition,
With the added,
with the added amendments to
So
add the
moved.
word
That apparel. Right.
Motion, okay. Motion Baldwin and second Gregorczyk. That we adopt Resolution 2024. Is this a roll call, please?
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilman Melton?
yes,
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
And motion passes. New business item number 6, consider adopting a resolution revising the municipal water conservation plan for the city of Gardner. I think that's Gons.
Good evening, Council President, Council members. The two items are related. but because any changes to the water conservation plan has to be done through a resolution, and a water conservation policy has to be done through an ordinance, we have two separate items, but they're both, one is incorporated in the other one. So going back to last year, we had some water restrictions implemented, and staff was directed to go ahead and review the water conservation policy. So I have a small presentation.
Ironic after today, even water conservation. Just use it all. Let's get it out of here. Sorry, go ahead, Beyonce.
So the Municipal Code Title 13 Utilities, Chapter 10.140 deals with the water conservation policy. So on April 1st, 1996, the city adopted Ordinance 1832, declaring and establishing policy procedures and rates for the electric, water, sewer divisions, including water conservation policy. The water conservation policy establishes and enforces conservation measures in the event of water supply emergency throughout the city. So if you go to paragraph 10.140, conservation policy fees and penalties. The city of Gardner shall provide for the declaration of water supply watch, warning, or emergency, and the implementation of voluntary mandatory water conservation measures throughout the city in the event such a watch, warning, or emergency is declared. So if you go to paragraph D, E, and F, any declaration of water watch, warning, and emergency has to be done through a resolution, and also the ending has to be done through a resolution. So here comes the some of the modifications made. On your left column, you have current text. On the right, you have your revised text. The items modified were highlighted in red. So for paragraph G, voluntary conservation measures upon the declaration of a water watch as providing subsection D of this section, the mayor, the city administrator, or public works director is authorized to call on water consumers to employ voluntary water conservation measures to limit or eliminate non-essential water uses. So the word mayor was removed, and then the public works director was replaced with the utilities director. The reason the mayor was taken out is to empower the city administrator and the public utilities director to take immediate actions to comply with the resolution. Then on paragraph H is similar. We have the mayor, city administrator, and public works director. The new revised text takes the mayor out and leave the city administrator and replaces the public works director with a utilities director. On the next page, similarly on K, violations, disconnections, and penalties, the difference is the mayor and public works director was changed or removed, and utilities director was added. Any questions on the water conservation policy?
No, I'm always excited to see the mayor lose power. Doesn't matter who the mayor is,
Does this align with other communities of our size with respects to the mayor being taken out of the equation?
If you go to the most cities, they have the mayor or city administrator or.
Okay.
So we're putting more than is actually needed.
Thank you, Don.
I got a question real quick. Ryan, on this slide we're on now where it references the paragraph K, where it, right after the changes, it says or other city official. Who is that referring to specifically?
Would that be an interim?
Yeah, I mean, that'd probably be, that'd be akin to the city administrator or utilities director, or the language, I guess I'd probably rather see would be or their designees, rather than or other city official, because that way there's a specific designation, it's kind of a delegation, like if Jim was out of town. That's what we'll typically see it as, but, yeah, I mean, it could be more, a little more specific
Clear.
that way. I agree with your point. Just seeing if it's defined elsewhere. Not that I see. Was that kind of the intent, John?
The intent is that somebody, a designee or some other city official, but I think your recommendation makes sense, or designee,
Way to go, Mark.
Yeah.
make it a little more clear.
Yeah. Mark's all about clear.
I am.
So any additional questions regarding the policy?
If we go with that, do we have to have all of the other text after that? Because city official or officials charged with implementation and enforcement.
You might not have to, but
Given, if you say
having-
designee.
at least this way that designee has restrictions as to who that designee could be and what they can do. We can come back to this.
You might just take out the word officials and put designee and leave all the other text the way it is.
Yeah, or their designees.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. I just don't know if it's.
Yeah. Instead of other city official or official, it'd be or.
If the city administrator, utilities director, or their
Designee.
Their designee.
That should work.
with implementation.
That way, it should not just any designee.
It's
you
the
know,
one
dog
charged
catcher.
with, yeah.
Don't miss the dog catcher.
Everybody good with those amendments?
Yes.
I like it.
All right. So, do we have a motion to adopt resolution 2025, adopting an updated municipal water conservation plan for the city of Gardner?
So moved.
Second. There's no more to it.
Actually, this is the water conservation policy. That's item,
It's number 6.
Yeah.
The policy is 7, the plan is 6.
The plan that goes in the policy.
Right. So we're on new business item number 6. So do we need to discuss?
Yeah, there's, the next few slides will give you more information.
Okay.
We're not done yet.
We're not done. All right. Go for it.
Nice try, though.
Sorry.
Like
Just trying to
said,
speed up this
Russ-
meeting to show he can do it.
Like I mentioned before, the policy, the plan is part of the policy, but because of resolution ordinance, it has to be done separately. So here is the water conservation plan, which is subparagraph C. The city council shall adopt by resolution a water conservation plan establishing the conditions triggering water conservation and the education management regulation of actions to be taken at various stages of water shortage. The first water conservation plan was adopted March 18, 1996, with revisions in 2003 and 2009. So the changes that I'm proposing are to the water conservation plan adopted in 2009. So the revised plan includes the following. The plan says a target per capita water use of 100 gallons per day. In 2009, it had a target of 120. The reason was changed to 100, that if we're, as you will see, our average use is about 81 gallons per person per day. So the regional average is about 105. So by lowering the gallons, the target is 120. So I felt appropriate to make it a little more conservative and put 100 gallons, 100 instead of 120, which is the region's average. Then the plans establishes water conservation practices, which include an educational component, management component, and a regulatory component. On the educational component, includes outreach through the city newsletter, city website, and or social media. These actions are already in progress. So in the 2009, it was city newsletter, city website, and we had to put a display on City Hall. Based on the technology, I think the social media is a more appropriate way of disseminating the information. Then on the management component includes the new residential water rates that go into effect January 1st, 2020, implementation of a water meter system to measure real-time water usage, and the evaluation of drought-tolerant landscapes in future development projects. And then on the actual the plan establishing a drought emergency contingency, most of the targets were the triggers, management actions, and regulations remain the same except for lawn water restrictions are based on 2 zones, north and south of Main Street. The previous plan was even and not had numbers of streets. And then the violation may be prosecuted in municipal court. That's part of the actual policy, but it's not spelled out on the actual plan. So if somebody takes the plan, they will have that information. They can any violation can be prosecuted, which, like I say, is part of the policy. And that's basically the changes I'm recommending for the policy and the plan. Any questions?
Any discussion, questions, comments?
I just had one question, Gons, on ordinance number 2616, section B, under classes of uses of water shall be established as follows, section 2. Is class 2 what New Century is under? I'm sorry, Gons. Section 1B, sub 2.
Section. Classes, you said B, class
Yes,
2?
sir. Yes, sir, class 2, water used for any commercial or industrial, including agricultural purposes, etc. Would that be where New Century falls into?
That'll be all, yeah, that'll be considered commercial.
Okay.
Or industrial.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions, comments? All right. We can I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2025, adopting an updated municipal water conservation plan for the city of Gardner.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we adopt resolution number 2025. I believe it's a roll call, right?
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
Councilman Miller?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Reversing?
Yes.
Motion passes. And new business item number 7, consider adopting ordinance number 2616, revising Title 13 Utilities, Chapter 10.140, Conservation Policy, Fee, Penalties of the Gardner Municipal Code.
Second.
Motion by Gregorczyk, second by Baldwin, that we adopt ordinance number 2616. City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Reversing?
Yes.
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gons. All right, now we have council updates. We'll start with Captain Belcher.
No, sir.
Interim city clerk. And finance director Matt Wolf is not here with us. So Ryan, do you have anything?
I do not.
Yeah, well, how about Gons? Jason?
No, sir.
Larry? Anybody? Bueller?
Couple of small, quick items, sir. First of all, we had the ribbon cutting at Excellence today, which council was able to attend, and just wish to reiterate to the council that that's a great project that this administration and past administrations worked very hard to obtain and to follow through on, and I'm sure the citizens of the community will appreciate that growth in years to come. Hampton Inn has been issued their completed CO. They still have some conditions to finalize, but those are all landscaping items or something that is fairly minor. They're not life, health, safety issues. Mm-hmm. So as soon as they complete their interview process with their flag owner, it's my understanding they'll be open for business shortly. Back on Excelligence for just a minute, I did want to thank the fire department. They were instrumental in a lot of the review process for that facility and a lot of the items that had to go on as far as multiple reviews of the fire system, both in Excelligence and Hampton. And without their assistance, it would have been a lot harder to have completed those two projects. So I wish to extend our thanks to Johnson County Fire District 1 for their participation in these projects, and they do review all of our commercial projects when the plans come in and they make comments on them, but then they have, of course, extra responsibilities of their own to take on and follow through with, which we're grateful that they do. The only other thing I have to just mention is that the parklet is in place. We do have the shade back on it. Now the sun's gone away again, but hopefully it won't get blown away in the few storms that we do have coming up. But it is there for the participants, and we have started the Phase 2 process for the downtown renovations for the implementation of Phase 2, which is where we have a steering committee in place to review some of that. And there is a food court coming in a few days that the Gardner Anderson Chamber is putting on here downtown, which will have a part of a survey process. One will be taking part of that with our consultant, and part of that will also take place at the parklet. So we're hoping to get some people moving between those two areas to participate in taking care of the survey. So when the food court's here, I'd like to encourage the public to take part in the public survey that we will have ongoing to look at and decide how some of the improvements to our downtown community be done in the area of bicycles, walkability, transportation issues, speed issues, etc., for specifically for the downtown area. So, thank you.
Very good. Public Works?
Nothing this evening.
All right. City Administrator.
Steve Hale mentioned a couple things. I'd like to see if there's any thoughts from the council on putting together a complete count committee, whether that's something that you would like city staff to explore, putting together and coordinating. Probably be a lot of volunteers. I know there's some grant funding available that we could pursue, but just the general idea of a count committee and whether we would be in charge of trying to put that together.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think so.
I agree.
It could only benefit us.
Yeah, I'd take it, or I'd add something that, I'd add to that though, Jim, is how can we incorporate USD 231 in that, because they'll see some positive outcomes of any of those grants and allocations from those funds, just after reviewing quickly the allocation of funds and what those are allocated to, so.
Let's say you partner up with BAM and you guys figure it out.
I'd like to see if staff or community directors are spearheading it. It'd be nice if we still got a bunch of volunteers to be the manpower of it, not the rest of city staff and USD 231 staff.
Unless they'd like to volunteer.
Yes, if they want to volunteer on their own time, that's fine.
I'm sure the chamber and faith-based community all will be involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds like a great idea. All right, since I'm sitting in the seat, I'm gonna go first.
Might as well.
I got only one thing. This weekend is coming up is Memorial Day weekend. And one thing as a veteran that I see almost every year, either in social media or people actually come up to me and know that I've served in the military and thank me for my service, either in light of or around the whole Memorial Day thing. I just wanted to get out there because I have this microphone and the video. Please don't do that. Please don't thank me for my service on Memorial Day, and don't thank any veteran for his service on Memorial Day. Memorial Day is for the fallen, and some of us left some people behind, and carry a little bit of guilt with us. And to be thanked on that day, when we're supposed to be remembering our fallen comrades, it's kind of painful. So I wanted to kind of share that a little bit with everybody, so everybody kind of gets that. In case you've got a veteran in your life that you're thinking about on that day, it's nice. It's always nice to be thanked, except on Memorial Day or any time around that Memorial Day thing. It's all about those that didn't make it back. And just a tidbit of history. Memorial Day came to us as a result of one of the most lethal wars in American history. That was the Civil War, where it was brother on brother killing each other, and families got together on certain days of the year in the wake of that war, and to remember their falling, and their fallen brothers and grandfathers and sons, and that's what started it. That's how it got going. So I wanted everybody to remember that and think about that, and also 3 o'clock local time, no matter where you are in the world, that's the time to take a moment and remember that your freedom is not absolutely free, even though it feels that way sometimes. So that's all I have. I'm going to start to my right with Councilman Ball.
I would like to thank the Girl Scouts for their presentation and their volunteer efforts. The STAR Award project I thought was great in the sense that it wasn't just a one-time deal. They got going with the church to where it's a future benefit to others, and I think that's great. And also to the young lady that earned her gold award. The only other thing I wanted to bring up was the State of the City address. I was glad to see a few of the things I'd requested from staff get looked at in the mayor's, what's he calling it, program?
The
Samaritan
former
project.
Mark Baldwin project that now is the Steve Sheep project?
Yeah, that one. So, yes, I'm glad that some of those got rolled in, and hopefully we can make that go forward. So.
Awesome.
Just the
Dr.
Excellence
Todd.
Learning opening this morning was really nice, and I think it made Gardner look great. There's a lot of dignitaries there, a lot of it was just good, and Rich did a fine job of filling in there for the mayor.
Thank you. Try to keep it short.
Yeah, I heard his name and I was like, oh gosh, no, I didn't. No,
Me
did
too.
Well. He did well. And that's it.
Okay. I'm gonna skip to my left to Councilman Gregorsi because you're wearing a tie.
Right. Yeah, I would echo Dr. Winter's comments about Rich. He did a fine job for the ribbon cutting and Excelligence. It does employ over 200 folks. I would say 15% of those live here in Gardner. It is a top of the line technological savvy distribution center that supports from kindergarten all the way through college. And I think Rich did a fine job. And there were some great dignitaries and board members and investors, so it was a good time. So well done. The last thing that I had was I just wanted to follow up with the compelling video that Rich had. I think it was at at Mulberry, and wondered where the crosswalk or what the crosswalk status is for Mulberry and Sycamore intersecting 183rd Street, Michael.
Yeah, so we've been working on scope and fee with engineering firms, and Tim was talking with another one today, and so we hope to be able to wrap that up and bring that, if necessary, back to council. Hopefully it's something we can move forward under the city administrator's authority.
Well, sooner the better. I mean, now we've got summer, and we have a lot of kids that are going to be crossing those same intersections to go to the pool, or go to a local park, or go see a buddy down the street. So I really just want to keep the community as a whole safe, but in particular our children, which are, I think, our greatest assets. So keep us posted on that, and the sooner the better. That's all I had, sir.
All right, Council Vice President Melton.
So first thing I want to say is thank you, Jason, for the email today. Did we send out something to the city-wide about the pool? And
yes, we are going to send out information about what we're doing for this weekend. For
I'm glad we found the problem. I mean, that seemed like a kind of a big one. I mean, we were losing a lot of water last year, and I'm glad we found hopefully the last one. Yeah, right. There we go. So anyway, that was it's good news, and I'm glad we're going to try to get it open by. We think it's filling up right now, probably, isn't it? So the other thing was the state of the city. I want to thank staff for their work on that. It was a fantastic presentation. I thought it did really good, and it showcased the conference center is an amazing place. If you haven't gotten by there, it's pretty amazing. So, and finally, Excelligence. I did, as they said, got to speak today. That is a facility I didn't know too much about up until today when I started sitting down talking to all the folks there. And apparently there was 9 different facilities that were consolidated into this one here in Gardner from all around the world. So it is pretty amazing what they do there. And they have these, awesome machines that go up, and boxes are automatically folded, and it was quite the tour that we went on just to look and see how they do things there. And as I pointed out when I spoke, that was we won that against cities all over the country. So it wasn't just it was only going to be in Kansas City. They actually did a lot of talking to other cities that, I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised they didn't try harder to get it. So we're very fortunate to have them. Thank you guys for coming to town. And also mad props to Larry and his folks. They privately, I was inundated with Larry and his team made it so easy, which, I'll be honest, Larry, I've not always heard that. So I'm excited to hear that. So anyway, and that's kind of it for me. I was super excited about today, and yeah, that's why I had to wear the monkey suit. So
cool.
Lee, can I have one more minute?
Go ahead.
I forgot to mention something. We, in the consent agenda, extended the planning commission member terms by 2 months. So I would encourage anyone in town to put their name in if they would like to be on the planning commission and all the other committees, because we need those positions filled sooner than later, so we can keep business going.
So I'm gonna win the BZA. Are you still doing that? Right. Yeah, I thought so. I mean, we're still needing people. We have the 3
Thanks,
for
Lee.
And I was going to address that tonight with the mayor, because we've got to get the interview team together and address the airport board and some other commissions. But since he's out, I'll grab him when he gets back, and we'll start working on it.
Thank you.
I wanted to throw one more plug out there to Finance Director Matt Wolf and thank him for the hard work that he put into the 2 bonds that we sold, and I'm really thrilled, and I feel like we're very lucky to have talent like that working for us in the city. So I'm glad to see that Laura's legacy is not lost, and she still has an influence here on the staff. So with that, the other last tidbit of Memorial Day trivia for you. I had I noticed the weather is not going to be so good, so I wanted to share something I learned in the military. A little phrase that kind of helps me all the time, and it's real simple. Embrace the suck. Just do it, and because it's going to be wet and soggy and we'll get by. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This meeting's adjourned.
Look at that. It could have been over 10 minutes earlier if you wouldn't have done it.
Yeah,
Steve.
Deal with it. Embrace it.
Look at that. You get embrace the suck, huh? Yeah, hopefully Steve doesn't watch this and he'll start saying that.
Okay, thank you for letting me know.